Welcome to the Wanderers Cooking Series. I'm Edith Andrews and my colleagues are...
Hello everyone, I am Kim Ferreira. I'm the dietitian and wellness coordinator at Coastline Elderly. It's a pleasure today. I have a guest here from Coastline Elderly who's also part of our wellness committee. So this is Kathy. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell the viewers what you do?
Absolutely. My name is Kathy Cardenas, and I am the agency educator at Coastline Elderly Services.
And what are some things that you do there?
Oh, gee.
I know.
I don't know where to begin. Actually, I provide the orientation and training for all of the new staff. I provide ongoing training in specific areas, skill areas for existing staff. I work with compliance issues with Executive Office of Elder Affairs with charts and such. I do whatever is needed.
Good, good.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you for stepping away from the office and coming here today. So I asked Kathy if she had a recipe that she likes to make that's on the healthier side, or if she had a recipe that she'd like to kind of make over. And she brought this really nice recipe that really didn't need any tweaking, and we can talk about ways that obviously you can always substitute different things for any recipe, but it's called bacon, pea, and fresh herb pasta. Just saying that, I'm getting hungry
delicious.
for it. I think those fresh herbs, it's just, very, very tasty sounding. So where'd you find this recipe, and when do you like to make this?
Actually, this recipe was given to me by a coworker.
Nice.
The case management supervisor, Kathy Nicholas. And I guess it was something that she makes when she has small gatherings. I enjoy making it either for just my husband and myself, or if we're having a small gathering. I like the idea that it utilizes pasta as opposed to potatoes, those types of starches. We eat entirely too many potatoes in my house. And it incorporates all the things I love, the fresh herbs, and of course, the bacon. Love the bacon.
Yes,
Well,
I
and
love
this is just
bacon
going to
also.
this will just use about 4 slices, so we're not going crazy on the bacon, but it is nice to, a lot of us think of bacon like, oh my gosh, you're never supposed to eat it, but in moderation, on
Always.
occasion, when you're adding it to a much larger
Yes.
dish, you end up getting maybe 1 slice. So you're easily able to incorporate that into a healthy diet, very easily. So we will get started, of course, first the pasta, which takes the longest to make. We already have a pot boiling, so it shouldn't take very long. And if any of you have worked with pasta, especially whole wheat, that's probably the only substitution of this recipe we made sure to do, was to incorporate 100% whole wheat. How do you know that it's whole wheat, ladies?
Well, usually when it's whole wheat, it's the first name in the ingredients.
Yes. And what does it say? How do you know?
I'm not certain. I just looked for
It
the
just
label
says-
on the package that
It just
says
says
whole wheat.
Doesn't it say whole wheat?
Most of
100%?
Most of the time, the label, when it says whole wheat or 100% whole wheat, it can't just be lying. The label can't be lying out here. But it's very often that the front label can be a little bit misleading sometimes. It can be, not always. So it's always important to check the nutrition ingredients. And the key word you want to see is the word whole. So in the first ingredient, you want to see the wheat, but you want to make sure it says whole. Whether it's oat, whether it's barley, whether it's any type of grain, you want to have the word whole.
Yes.
This can be very misleading, especially when products talk about multigrain, because we think automatically that it's very healthy for us and it's got to be a whole grain. But they can throw in multiple grains in a product, but the first ingredient can be just plain stripped wheat flour. So it's always important to take a look at the label if you're second guessing. Again, if it says 100% whole wheat, you can be confident it's 100% whole wheat. If it doesn't, then I'd just take a check. Takes 10 seconds to make sure it has the word whole, and then we're ready to go.
Should always read.
It's good. It gets you to read. Have the kids. If you have kids,
exactly.
grandkids, kids you take care of, it can be a nice learning experience the grocery store can be, but I'm sure anyone who brings kids into the store, you want to get them out as fast as possible, I'm sure. So we're going to use a half a pound, which is about a half of a box. So we're just going to throw that in. And whole wheat pasta, if any of you guys have cooked with it, if you've noticed, it really doesn't take that long to cook.
Oh,
I have found that it takes a little less time than regular pasta. So while that's cooking, we are going to also start our yummy bacon that Kathy can't wait about. So this recipe calls for how much bacon?
Well, it depends. It's to taste, but I believe that we're using just 4 slices of bacon today.
Which is 4 ounces. So in general, about 1 slice is about an ounce, just so you roughly get an idea of how much bacon you want. So Edith, if you want, if you could just, you can just chop them into strips and we'll throw them in the pan. Again, bacon is going to be one of those fattier meats. So if you can try to get things that say center cut bacon, you know, you can be particular and cut out some of that obvious fat if you're really trying to lean down. Bacon is cured. So what is one of those items that you always think of when you think of bacon? What is it always high in?
Sodium.
Yes. If you've had a history of high blood pressure or heart disease, bacon is one of those items that typically the doctor and dietitians like myself will say you want to make sure you're limiting. If you are a huge bacon fan, you have a hard time, you know, not indulging every once in a while, try to find the uncured. And if you find that, there is a lot less sodium in it. You want to,
ready?
Yep. Just put that in a pan, and we're going to start sizzling that up.
Kim, I had a question on that, on the uncured. How does that compare to just low sodium bacon that you see in the supermarket?
It depends on the brand. So lower sodium it really depends how much lower the sodium is.
Okay.
So you really should compare a reduced sodium bacon to an uncured bacon. This particular per serving is 140 milligrams of sodium, which is considered low. As a guideline, anything that is 140 milligrams or less per serving is considered a lower sodium item. And this tells you right on the package. You know, 2 slices is 140 milligrams. So that's why the uncured is always a good taste, is always a good way to go. But I have to tell you a funny story. My parents were out from Michigan, and you know, unfortunately, my dad doesn't like to take nutrition advice, or I have to say he loves all sorts of meat, and we made something with bacon, and I mentioned that it was uncured, and the first thing he said was, I didn't think it had as much, you know, flavor, salt in it. And I'm like, but that's what happens when we're so used to eating foods with so much salt on it. We're used to having that flavor. I don't really tell a difference. I think that there's still enough flavor in there, and when you're adding all these other ingredients, it doesn't overdo it. And for most of us who have a history of heart disease or high blood pressure, you're going to want to choose something like this because you don't want to eat more sodium than you have to. So it's a good bet.
And I never think about looking at the salt in bacon. I just look and see how lean it is.
Okay. Yeah, bacon can be on the fattier side, so you know, you want to check the fat, but definitely check that sodium out. So we're going to let that cook until it's crisp.
All right.
And while that's crisp,
because it's slowed down.
Yeah, it's now a lot better.
Yeah.
So we'll put that up a little bit.
It smells great.
It does.
Oh, it smells
I
so
love
good
bacon.
right now, and I think this pasta will probably be done in a couple minutes. So while that's cooking and while Edith is tending to that, what are we going to start chopping up?
Well, we have our parsley, 1.5 cups of parsley.
Yep, okay.
Here. And there's 1/2 cup of fresh dill.
Yummy.
And we have 1/4 cup of chives.
Beautiful.
And this stuff smells heavenly. Where would you like me to begin?
Well, you can cut the dill or the chives. I'll tackle the parsley, and
Okay.
then we'll just kind of put
start
it
with
in
this.
this big bowl together.
Very good.
So all the herbs are going to go together. Now,
Okay.
do any of you ladies cook a lot with fresh herbs? Do you typically do dried herbs, or do you do any fresh very often?
Oregano, basil. I grow basil every year out on the deck.
Nice.
So yeah.
I just do the powdered.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's round, but because I'll eat it, because I love parsley.
Parsley is great.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's very good for you.
Oh, it's so good for you. And actually, I'm glad you said that. What are some...
Is this our...
Yep, that'll be our bowl. Any idea what are some good nutrients in parsley? Any idea? Because a lot of us, we think of herbs and they're just this addition. You know, they don't really provide a lot of calories, which is a good way to flavor something, you know, without extra calories or without extra sodium and things like that. But parsley actually has some good nutrients to it. Any ideas?
No.
Your quiz question for the morning, right? Always asking those quiz
Yeah.
It's
questions.
green,
No,
it's got
that-
chlorophyll, right?
Yeah, we'll have chlorophyll.
It does it because it does remove the, lots of times if you have a very smelly type of dinner,
Yep.
a little bit of parsley will cleanse your palate and it will clean your breath.
Okay. So what about nutrients? Besides having it be a nice breath cleaner,
I don't know.
what else would you say? What kind of nutrients? Because of the green, what kind of is there-
Vitamin...
Fluorescent? Fluorescent, that's a light.
What vitamin would that have in it? I
phosphorus.
don't even know which vitamin. that might have.
Phosphorus?
Phosphorus.
That's a good guess, but not one that's extremely high.
Okay.
Is there any nutrient that you guys think of when you think of like darker green vegetables?
I know I should with
Yeah.
kale.
Yes. What? Is
I
K?
know.
It's not K.
yes, it's vitamin
it
K.
K?
Yes.
See,
it's
I
vitamin
didn't know that
K.
I knew
Oh.
that. I
It
use a lot of...
actually is
Okay.
a high source of vitamin K.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also a really good source of vitamin A, vitamin C. It's got some good iron in it, believe it or not.
Right,
It's a nice source of your iron and your vitamin K and folate, which is a B
Oh, yeah,
vitamin.
folate, because that's what I always say, folic acid.
Yep.
Yeah, I always have that.
Beautiful. So, you know, get your parsley, and it's another way to get some of those extra nutrients in.
And you'll notice too that when people have a blood thinner, they're not supposed to have
Right, I was going to
anything
say
that's
that.
green.
Yeah.
Well, the actual treatment for that is consistent intake. So they don't have to necessarily avoid it, but they want to make sure that they're not, you know, avoiding all things green and then all of a sudden eating everything green for 2 days and then avoiding it again.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they want to
yeah.
have consistent intake.
I think maybe they should be speaking to you rather than to some, because they have taken a lot of people that I know off kale, and kale is one of the mainstays of our soups.
Right. Well, it's a lot easier for someone to avoid something than try to get it very consistent. But if you are someone, you know, like my mother-in-law loves her green salads and she's on it. But as long as you're eating it consistently, you know, have your salad, make sure you're having it your 4 times a week. But for a lot of people, that's really hard to do, and so it's just easier for them to avoid
say,
it. But they
yeah.
don't have to, so I like to mention that. And a key ingredient in this recipe, obviously we said bacon, pea, and fresh herbs are our peas. And if you're using frozen, which is always an affordable, great way to go, you're just going to add the peas in right before you're ready to drain, because you pretty much want to just get them, you know, a little bit unthawed, and then we're ready to go. So we're
And
going to...
usually less salt.
Yes, the cans are always going to have more salt in them. Fresh or frozen is always the way to go. Many people find if you're living alone or, you know, I don't use peas all the time. It
think
makes
we're
more
going to- yeah,
sense
shut it
to
off.
just get frozen, use what you want, and then this easily tie it up, throw it in the freezer, and
Yes.
that can sit for a bit. So our bacon looks nice
Yes,
and
it
crisp.
looks.
And I know Kathy is getting all that dill ready to go, so we are summing this up real nicely.
Okay, yeah.
So what we're going to do is, the recipe calls to reserve a cup of the pasta water. Any idea what pasta water, you know, when you see cooking shows and they add a little bit of pasta water back in, do you know what it does? Any idea?
Well, it certainly makes it easier to melt the cheese, I can tell you that.
It is.
But I don't know what other reason for it.
Well,
But the
if,
nutrition is in there.
well, if you notice, the color is not completely white, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Besides the extra peas that snuck in there. If you see it, it's kind of that, the color of the pasta.
Yeah,
It's because some of that starch is leached into the pasta.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you're making kind of what we're going to be doing, which is end up going to be our sauce, is it actually helps to thicken it a little. So if you're making other dishes and you set aside a little bit of pasta water, it will help to thicken the dish. What I also love to do is I save my pasta water and I freeze it, and then that's a good base for
that's an
your
idea.
soups.
Yeah.
And then that way, it's also a way to conserve water. So if you're trying to look at those other types of issues, environmental issues, you save your pasta water, you can use it for a lot of things. So I'm going to drain this real quick.
I save the pickle juice for lots of things.
Yeah, same type of thing.
Yeah, for salad dressing, for salad dressing.
Reusing, that's what it's
Yes,
about.
Sure.
So we have our big bowl here.
And it's al dente. That looks great.
Yes, it looks excellent.
Okay.
And then we are going to first add the cheese. So the cheese we're going to add, the recipe calls for, what kind of cheese was that?
Goat cheese.
Goat cheese. Now,
Very strong tasting, yes.
it is a strong tasting, so you don't need very much. This is just 4 ounces of goat cheese, and so you can use as little or as much as you want. It's a nice creamy texture too, so it melts real nicely. And then we're going to add our pasta water in, just so we can create almost like a nice sauce. And how simple is that?
It almost looks like mayonnaise, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
I know you like mayonnaise.
Yeah, I know.
Mention it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, smell that goat cheese? Now, I know you mentioned, Kathy, when you've made this, you've used other cheeses. So you can use other cheeses in this?
Yes, mozzarella, but it has to be prepared separately in a saucepan with a little bit of the water. It doesn't mix well in the actual dish itself. You have
Okay.
to do it first and then add it.
Oh.
So this is really much better.
So maybe if you could use other creamier cheeses, like you could probably do a blue cheese.
Yes.
You could probably do a feta cheese, because that will melt real nicely into a sauce. All right, well, let's
Now,
throw
are
in
we
our-
going to drain this?
We are going to, actually, yes, we are going to get some paper towel.
Yes.
And let's just blot this bacon a little bit. Thank you, Edith. This is a big
'Cause I know I
step
don't-
we don't want to forget. Well, we wouldn't throw that in there. Oh, heavens
Yeah.
no. So if you want to just put that bacon on that. So this is another good way to get rid of some of that grease. I hope most of you, when you're making bacon at home, you at least blot that out a little bit. That'll get rid of that unwanted fat and grease. So, good. Good, we're just gonna blot that
Yeah, okay.
real quick.
Just that last bit.
Yep. Just give it a good blot, right?
Put this other piece in there. Since they're only the little,
Oh, it's all
don't
nice.
waste.
I mean, you see how much grease comes up from
Yes.
this pan. I mean, from this, from the paper towel, you can really get a lot. That's for sure. All right, I think we're ready to go. Let's throw that in.
It's a colorful dish, isn't
Isn't
it?
it? It's
Its
beautiful.
presentation is aesthetically pleasing.
It is.
Yeah, see that?
Okay.
And then you want to throw all of our wonderful, yummy pasta, fresh herbs,
your
not
fresh
pasta,
herbs.
fresh herbs.
You
I
want
think most of that's going in there, right?
Yeah,
there's
I just
quite
didn't know
a
if you
bit.
wanted to mix while I'm doing it. I'll just put it all in there.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And then do you want to season with some salt and pepper?
Yeah.
Here's the salt and pepper.
Sure.
So again, use it based on taste. Again, if you're watching that sodium, you can exclude the salt, or if you want to add a little bit. And Edith, while I'm stirring this, do you want to just squeeze that lemon in here? So about a half a lemon, you're going to want to squeeze in. Beautiful.
I like to put the salt in my hand so I can see how much is actually going in.
That's a great
want
idea.
this
Just a
one
little
too.
tip, but
Yep, that's a great idea.
actually that's a pretty big bowl.
Yeah,
so I
because
have
when you
to-
just keep tossing it in like that, you really have no idea how much you're adding.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient.
Oh.
We'll have to do it to taste, but I think
look
that
at
should
that.
be.
That is
looks
beautiful.
delicious.
That looks gorgeous.
All right. Now,
Oh, it grinds. Yep.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Where is it?
sorry.
Oh, the thing
the
is
lid.
the lid. I have these acrylic
I always
nails
forget to
there.
take the lid off. So it
Okay.
confuses
Yeah,
when we have
Because
guests on.
Here
so
we
many
go.
times the other containers don't have a lid.
Yeah.
So you're just used to turning
I'm used to doing that at home. I
There.
just have the wooden one.
That should do it.
Beautiful. Let's give
Yes.
it a
that's
couple
good.
stirs, and then the best part of the show, we're gonna give this a taste,
Oh, yeah.
which is my favorite part. The
Yes.
smells. I'm smelling the goat cheese, but I'm smelling the herbs, and I'm smelling the lemon, which is just making that
Yes,
nice sweet tasting flavor. I am really excited.
I'm
to try
saving
this.
these because I eat lemon.
Oh,
I love lemon.
Really? You
Yes,
do?
I do. I do.
You can go crazy
great.
with that then.
That's why I put it aside.
Hey, that
Well, thank
lemon
you.
is all yours, Edith.
Yes, well,
all yours.
thank you.
Yes.
I was depending on it.
It is a nice melange,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh,
Yes.
this looks great.
Very good.
Okay. Bon appetit, ladies.
Really, really fresh and very, very light. There's so much herbs in it that you almost have more herbs in pasta that it really makes it a really light dish. This is fantastic.
Very good.
As I'm spilling it. And then
Delicious. It's a salad.
yeah, it is. It almost does seem like a salad. Yeah.
Well, you can put it in the refrigerator, whatever you don't use, and serve it cold. It tastes just as good cold. So
I was actually going to
Yep.
ask you that because when I was getting the ingredients today, I thought, wow, this seems like it would be a really nice cold pasta dish too.
absolutely.
And the nutrition is well in line within healthy standards. It's less than 30% of calories from fat. It's within reason of carbs. You know, this is like a main meal. So if you didn't want to do bacon or you wanted to add a little bit more oomph to it, you could also throw in some chicken. It's about 50 grams of carbs, which is well within what your meal should be, even if you are diabetic. Diabetics should be having anywhere from 45 to 60 grams of carbs a meal. So this is well within line. And there's 4 grams of fiber. And that's not including the whole wheat pasta. So that even bumps the fiber up even more. If you're not a pea fan, you could definitely add different things like green beans, or you could probably add some sauteed spinach in there to get some greens. You could probably add some tomatoes.
Tomatoes. That is a great idea. I'd love to try this with
And I would
tomatoes.
add some other red in there too, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank
Because the
you
only
both.
red that we see, the
Yeah.
bacon, is the bacon. That's
Yes.
the only little pinkish look.
Yeah, it is. So that would add another little color to it. So Edith, as always, it's a pleasure.
Oh, and it's a
Kathy,
pleasure.
thank you so much for introducing us to this wonderful, yummy recipe. I'm definitely going to be trying. Definitely.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you for joining us on the Wanderers Show.
Yes. Thank you everyone for watching. And if you just wait just a second, you will see the recipe scrolling up to right down. You can also find the recipe and all the other shows on our website, coastlineelderly.org. In the right-hand corner is the menu Coastline Cooks, and you will find all previous shows and this show, including the recipe. So I hope you enjoyed the show and hope you watch again. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.